Hey, you. Yeah, you. Welcome to the Malaka podcast. Nipsey Hussle. Well, unfortunately, we lost this man way too soon. Here's a guy that all he wanted to do was give back to his community, do something that's positive. Now, a lot of people, they listen to rap and, they think it's always negative. They always think it's a, bad message that's being conveyed. And a lot of people just don't see the big picture with it. A guy like this, he did it all. He rapped, he acted, but one of the biggest things he ever did was never gave up on his community. He was so strong and aware of what his community meant to him. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of people in this industry, they build themselves up. They're able to get themselves out of a bad situation. Sometimes it's where they live, and they just want to run away from it. A lot of people will still keep mentioning it in their songs, but they never go back. And, a lot of them just don't give back to their own community. That was the great thing about Nipsey Hussle. I mean, I always heard of this, but unfortunately, it's one of these things where when someone dies, you hear even more about what he did and everything he was able to do for his community. He opened up his own store and he sold his own products there. And it was the same spot where he used to hustle in front of. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the irony of life. You turn something negative you used to do into a positive. And unfortunately, just a little while ago, it became a negative again. And that shouldn't discourage anybody out there that wants to be a young entrepreneur. You should never give up on your area or just your community, and just don't give up on it. Don't let one bad person ruin it for everyone else. In moments like this, we have to keep moving forward and not think of, oh, if this person didn't have this store in his area, it wouldn't have ended up like this, or it's got something to do with some kind of conspiracy. I fucking can't stand when people do and say stupid shit like that. I mean, this man had everything going for him. He had a lot of respect, a lot of people backing him up on his work, and it was just a shame that it has to end like this. But his legacy will always live on. One thing I always liked about Nipsey Hussle was just his name. I mean, Hussle. That's a lot of people don't even live up to that in general. But he put it out there, he put it in his name, and he lived up to it. His real name was Ermias Joseph Askedum. He was born August 15th, 1985, and unfortunately passed away March 31st, 2019. He was just in front of his store that he owned, and unfortunately was shot right in front of it. Apparently, what I've heard from the news is that he had an altercation with this other person, and the person came back later to shoot Nipsey Hussle. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this still happens to this day. I mean, let me just say this. If you get into a fight with someone, and if it's something over, I mean, God only knows what it was over. It's probably over some bullshit or just something. I mean, like, it's not worth killing for. It's not worth, ruining lives over. I mean, just, be a man or woman and just let it go. I mean, this senseless violence really just has to stop. I mean, You know, it's just a shame that things have to end like this. And this is a guy who, you know, like I said, at 33 years old, I mean, you know, he did a lot in a short time being on this earth. And, you know, but this is, you know, nobody deserves this end. I mean, this isn't something that should ever happen to anybody. And it's a shame it did. It really is. I mean, there's not a lot of guys out there who will not forget where they come from and always just do everything they can for their community. The name of his store was Marathon Clothing. I mean, think about that concept. When you're in a marathon, you got to be really strong. You got to be confident. You got to be in great shape. You know, you're in it for the long run. So that alone was just very inspirational, you know, like his name, you know, like I mentioned before. And this is a guy who really wanted to make a difference, not just for his community, but just for himself. Nipsey Hussle was born to Angelic Smith, an African American woman, and DeWitt Asjadam, an Eritrean immigrant, on August 15th, 1985. He was raised in the Crenshaw neighborhood of South Los Angeles, along with his brother Samuel and his sister Samantha. Now, guys, I'm not gonna lie to you, I grew up in Canada, but I've heard stories about the south of Los Angeles, and it's a tough place. I mean, you know, so no one's ever going to dispute that. So for him to grow up in that area and build himself up into the man he was until he died was just awesome. I mean, it really was. You know, a lot of people have done that, and, you know, God bless him for that. I mean, it's just a really, you know, tough situation to be in at the time, and it's just really amazing to me that someone can, you know, have the drive, you know, like he did to, you know, accomplish something really good in his life. He also attended Hamilton High School in the nearby Castle Heights neighborhood, but dropped out before graduating. At the age of 14, he left home and joined the local Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips, a subgroup of a larger Crips gang primarily based in his home neighborhood of Crenshaw. Now, once again, guys, unless you've been living under a rock the last 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, you know, this is a group in Los Angeles that is very tough, you know, to become a gang member. I've heard stories where, you know, you have to take beatings by other members, and, you know, at the same time when you're growing up, you know, you're told to do illegal things, and, you know, a lot of these guys, they don't get out of it alive. And, you know, once again, you know, for him to turn something like this, a negative, into a positive, and, you know, for him to, I shouldn't say get out of it. I mean, like, I've been told, you know, once you're in this group, you know, you're in it forever. But, you know, at the same time, it's like anything else. I mean, you know, you grow up and you just got to get out of it. And, you know, hopefully you get out of it alive. And, you know, the people in the group understand that, you know, you want to make a better name for yourself. And, you know, after that, everything goes well. His stage name, a play on the name of the comedian Nipsey Hussle, originated as a nickname given to him by a childhood friend. Now, for those of you who don't know who Julius Nipsey Hussle is, he was an American comedian, poet, and dancer, best known for his appearances as a panelist on game shows from the 1960s throughout the 90s, including Match Game, Password, Hollywood Squares, To Tell the Truth, and Pyramid. And he even showed up in the movie The Wiz, starring Michael Jackson, as the Tin Man. And one time they actually, asked him, what is the secret of eternal youth? Because he always had like a very young look to him. And he said, the answer is easily told. All you got to do if you want to look young is hang out with people who are old. Which kind of makes sense. I mean, but yeah, he always had a good sense of humor about everything. And it appears that Nipsey Hussle also had a really good sense of humor about everything. And one thing I always noticed is that he was very open about his life and his success and his past. And, when you're in this business, you pretty much have to. At the age of 19, his father took him and his brother on a trip to Eritrea, East Africa, for 3 months in 2004. And he credits that trip to inspiring him to become a community activist with an entrepreneur spirit. It's funny how, our parents always just inspire us, as kids, and, the little things they do, We may not always get along with them, but, a simple trip like this, just basically telling your kid, like, listen, this is where you're from. This is where I'm from. This is where your whole family's from. And, of course, something like this will always stick with you, So I'm sure, this was a huge inspiration on his life, and he always remembered it. He always carried it with him. And this is what inspires a lot of rappers to create their own mixtapes. In December 2005, Nipsey Hussle independently released his first mixtape, and, it was a moderate success. Nothing big, He named it Slauson Boy Volume 1, and it got a couple people's attention. I remember when I was growing up in my 20s, and I remember one of the first songs I heard him do with Drake called Killer, and that got a lot of attention, obviously, because Drake was coming up as well. And, Drake was always known to, even to this day, he'll still, get some rappers that are slowly coming up and just do a song with them, because he just wants to expose these guys and, give them the chance that he had as well. So, it's a slow build, but then it did get the attention, and eventually he got signed to Cinematic Music Group and Epic Records. Now, I wonder, for a while, I didn't hear a lot about him. I mean, apparently I did hear the song. It was basically supposed to be his breakthrough single, Feeling Myself, with Lloyd. And after that, he never really came out with an official big album with them, and it kind of just fizzled, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it just never really happened. And that's what happens to a lot of artists, Apparently, they'll have a good single, and, it's like, okay, can they come out with another album? Can they have another hit after that? And of course, a lot of record companies just don't understand, the hustle, and they just don't understand how, sometimes it can be a slow build, And they parted ways, and then after that, he pretty much decided, yeah, I'm just gonna do this thing myself. And in 2010, he came out with his own album called The Marathon. And, again, it was an alright success. I mean, what's crazy is when I look at the tracks on here, I mean, there's a lot of great tracks on here. Keys to the City, Dreamin', it's just the title of a lot of these tracks, like I said, you got A Million, 7 days a week, Grind Mode, It's clear that the hustle is in him, He just and this is what a lot of people don't understand as well. Like when you're younger, you really just want that recognition from, other people. And you want people to know right off the bat what you're about. And I mean, the titles alone in these songs, just tell you what he's all about. And his next album came out a year later called The Marathon Continues. And it did continue. People were starting to finally recognize him. Not that they didn't before, of course, but he was able to keep up the grind as well. And again, the titles of these songs just speak for themselves. Road to Riches, Run a Lap. There's always that like underlining of inspiration. He just wants to keep going, and it's like he knows he's on this path, and the path is going to bring him something really great in the end. The song Rose Click is just basically him describing everything he's been up to in this point. Great beat as well. It's very inspiring, his music. It really is. I think a lot of people, when they listen to rap, obviously they just look for that beat, but you really got to listen to the lyrics as well, and even just like the content of a song, like even the title itself will usually say everything. And then he came out with another album called Crenshaw. Like I said before, this is where he's from. And the amazing thing about this album is that he sold this album for $100. And people were like, are you fucking crazy? Like, like in a day of, age and, all this shit and people just getting shit for free online, like, people were like, yeah, dude, no one's going to buy $100, just for an album. I mean, it's not going to happen. And, well, surprise, surprise, he did it. He was able to actually pull this shit off. And he sold 1,000 copies to Jay-Z alone, and I don't know, in this game, if you can get Jay-Z's attention, I think you're doing pretty well. So, and again, great album, had no signs of slowing down, and again, he's doing this all on his own. He's not doing this with any help of, big labels or anything like that. And, he's just slowly doing this himself, And again, like you look at the titles of a lot of these songs, Hate or Love It, No Regrets, Blessings, Face the World, 4 in the Morning. Again, this continues the hustle, and he was able to get some big names on here too. He was able to work with Rick Ross. He even got a sample from Sade. I don't even know how he pulled that off, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe it cost him a lot, maybe it didn't. I don't know. Who knows? But I've always loved Sade, ever since the '80s. But yeah, it's very inspiring. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing this as well. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take anything from anyone here, but I mean, this guy was constantly on the grind, so good for him. And didn't stop there. Next mixtape he came out with called Mailbox Money, and each copy he sold, he said, okay, you know what, instead of $100, I'm gonna sell each copy for $1,000. And again, you can't say he's nuts, because he was able to do 100. So let's see, if I sell a little less, but if I charge a little more, still going to make money. And he was able to sell 100 copies for $1,000 each. And again, he's got great producers here. He's got good people working with him, you know? And again, look at the titles. Stay Loyal, A Miracle, Been Here for a While. That's How I Knew. I'm just trying to make the point in saying that hard work always pays off. It may not happen right away, but it eventually just pays off. And you know, I said this years ago with illegal downloading. I mean, you know, this will prove who is the smart artist out there. And this guy knew exactly what to do, you know. Worst case scenario, even if he didn't sell like any albums for $100 each or $1,000 each, he knew that either way it would get attention, you know. It got attention from Jay-Z. It got attention from the critics, you know. He got the people's attention. And it's not like he's making shitty music. I mean, he's making really good music, you know. Like people said that he brought back the old school West Coast, you know, vibe and feel, you know. Which is something for a while in like, I would say the thousands, you know. The thousands, you know, the 2000s, like, I mean, like, you know, that whole rap period, you know, it was kind of like just dying down and every beat sounded the same. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't know, a lot of beats sound the same today, but I mean, like the West Coast kind of lost its sound for a bit, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was always there, you know, but it wasn't treated with the respect it deserved, you know, and, you know, it wasn't being played on rotation on radio, and it just wasn't there for some, I don't know, like a lot of people were ignoring it for some reason. And people always knew that, you know, the melodies of the West Coast are just some of the catchiest shit of all time. And, you know, it's guys like this guy, you know, Nipsey Hussle, who kept it going and kept us listening. And then his last album came out in 2018 called Victory Lap. Victory Lap is the debut and only studio album by Nipsey Hussle. It was released on February 16, 2018 through All Money In, No Money Out and Atlantic Records. It was Nipsey Hussle's first major commercial release after releasing a string of mixtapes for 13 years, as well as his only full-length album released during his lifetime. The album debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, selling 53,000 album equivalent units. It reached a new peak of number 2 in April 2019 following Nipsey Hussle's death. It received a nomination for Best Rap Album at the 61st Grammy Awards. So finally, after all these years, I'm not even gonna say struggling, but just literally again, hustling, working his ass off, he finally got the respect he deserved with the Grammy Awards. Like I said before, getting an award, it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. I mean, in this day and age, I don't think so. But in the end, this is a huge accomplishment for him. And to finally get recognized for something that should have been done a very long time ago says a lot. And look at the album title, Victory Lap. He knew he won with this album, either way. Look at the titles. Victory Lap. Last time I checked, with YG. Dedication. Hustle and Motivated. Grinding All My Life. Which to me is one of my favorite tracks that he's ever done. I mean, if that song doesn't get you pumped and inspired, nothing will. But again, I mean, that was like his motivation. It wasn't just for him, it was just to motivate other people as well. He started his own group, his own investment group called Vector 90 as a tech ecosystem in itself. So he describes it as this. So basically, there are these different office space rented by entrepreneurs that are starting apps or got skincare companies or product lines. So they got investors in the building with David Gross, who's the founder and my partner, and in myself. Every year, we're going to be able to do a first round of seeding for one of these entrepreneurs. They can make a pitch and say, this is what I'm doing. This is what we need to take to the next level. And they can have access to investments in the same building. Hussle said in an interview with Black Enterprise last year, instead of having to fly somewhere, it's right here in Crenshaw District. Again, he's got a great idea where someone can just come in, they have another idea, they invest in his company, and it's right there. The guy doesn't have to fly to Paris or China or whatever. I mean, again, he's giving back to his community. So if you got an idea, just come to him. If he likes it, he'll take it. And it's not like they got to meet half a way around the world just to get it done. It's done right in your backyard. He also said a very cool quote. Investing shouldn't just be about making as much money as possible. It should be prioritized being able to hold your head up high in your community, knowing that you were able to create wealth for others while also supporting your own family and needs. Hussle made clear that this objective was to lift up his community. He demonstrated a new model for success that's not just about what you can buy, but what you can build. That's extremely inspiring. I mean, even if, you start off with nothing, it's great to see that you can build within your community and it'll spread, make other people rich as well. But not even just, again, not just about the money, just, spreading the wealth, The guy was almost like a Robin Hood. I mean, he just really wanted to give back to his community. Like everything that I'm just seeing a theme with him. It's just like everything he surrounded himself with is him just still staying true to where he came from, not giving up that idea where you can be a success wherever you're from. And just because you are that success, you have to move away from it. You can still stay within your environment that you grew up with and help everyone around you as well. It really is a great feeling, like when you are able to reach a certain amount of power and, instead of just abusing that power, like a lot of people do, he just, spread it around and he wanted everyone, to learn from him. He was so beloved in the wake of Hussle's death. A petition was started to rename the intersection of Slauson Avenue and Crenshaw Boulevard near Hussle's store Marathon Clothing to Nipsey Hussle Square. This was a thanks to everything he contributed to his neighborhood. Hussle's memorial service was held on April 11th at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, with tickets given away free of charge. A letter from former President Barack Obama was read, which praised the rapper for his work in the community. It was quoted, "While most folks look at Crenshaw neighborhood, where he grew up, and see only gangs, bullets, and despair, Nipsey saw potential." That's what Obama wrote. the 25.5-mile funeral procession wound through the streets of South LA, including Watts, where he spent most of his formative years. The Watts Towers were a gathering place along the route for mourners. The crowds lining the streets, which at times created gridlock as they flooded the streets, demonstrated the impact he had on his community. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Southern California. Like I said before, this is something that should have never happened, especially to a guy that, in my opinion, all he wanted to do was just give back to his community. Ermias, his name means God will rise. And he didn't have, the easiest time in school. I mean, not a lot of people do, I mean, at one point, his mother was convinced that he was gifted. And his mom went to the school and told him, "You better test my kid." And when he got tested, his scores went through the roof. So again, don't ever judge a book by its cover. And mom always knows. And, this is the kind of guy he was. He was just very smart. And he knew exactly what he had to do in his life from a young age. The day after he died, he planned a meeting with the police commissioner, Steve Soboroff, and with Jay-Z and Rock Nation to make some kind of resolution about gang violence in his area and in the city of Los Angeles. So even to the day he died, he was still pushing for peace. Even in his lyrics, he didn't want to promote gun violence or any violence. Even his last message on Twitter read, "Having strong enemies is a blessing." And for the first day, nobody really knew what that meant. What that actually ended up meaning is he had a discrepancy with a person by the name of OG Firebug, and it was just over, some stuff, and they ended up resolving it. And in life, you shouldn't carry around so many enemies, and if you can just make an enemy into a friend and just resolve it, I mean, that's always the best thing you can do. And he didn't want to release that information at that time. He wanted to wait till after the meeting with the Los Angeles Police Department, and that was going to be towards that. So, he tried to make everything, like even a negative, into a positive, which is, something we should all do. And I was seeing this little special he had where he was just, showing his area, Crenshaw, his store, and, where he grew up. And he was just very friendly with everybody. He's, "Hey, you want to be in my documentary?" Just a very friendly attitude. I mean, nothing threatening about him, nothing, just very chill. And, like he ends up going to a house, and, he has this board, this, whatever, something you can just write on, just erase it right away. And, one of the messages on there is, if you want it, go get it. And it's really that simple. And that's pretty much how he lived. And, it's a shame that it just had to end so soon, and this has to stop. This absolutely has to stop. You know, this violence is just, it's not worth it anymore. You know, the best advice I can give just to anybody out there, like if you're thinking of getting revenge on someone or just doing something violent, just really think about what you're doing, not only to yourself but just to others, and how it just affects everybody, and it just spreads like a virus. I mean, just don't do it. It's not worth it, you know. And everybody should take a page from this young gentleman, and you know, wherever you start from in life, you know, just make sure it ends in positivity and inspire everyone around you, and just make sure that you do the best you can in life, especially for your community, because where you grew up, that's what makes you, and everybody should always give back to it. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle.